Hey there, it is SharRon, and I am excited about being here. It's been a moment since I've been in our private group, so I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that we have this time together. And also want to say thank you so much for those who had a chance to join me for my birthday. I am so grateful. I know that there are so many other places that you can be, and so you spending time on my birthday was a blessing, and thank you so very much. I also wanted to make sure you had the form. I didn't have a chance to finish everything on our time together in the group on Monday, but I wanted to talk about one of the number 3 that I didn't have a chance to speak with or address on Monday. And again, I'm talking from the Design to Soar book. I hope you can see that. And the one that I didn't have a chance to go through on Monday is the one on page 12. And it reads as follows, that there is a difference between a transformation. Hey, Shalette. Hi, so glad you're here. That there's a difference between a transformation and a transfer. One is a makeover and one is just a move over. And then the question I pose is, are you making real changes in your life? Or are you just applying makeup on top of mess? And I say that because if you have that, I wanted to talk about the difference between a transformation and a transfer. Because many times we think that by changing our spouse or changing our house that we are really making a transition in our lives, but that's just transfer. A transformation is not just a change in geography, it's a change of mentality. It's a change of mentality that requires us to renew our minds, which means that we have to put something new in our minds, because if not, it's not a renewal of a mind, it's a recycled mind. And what we don't want to do is to rehash information that really never served us in the first place. So it is a renewing of our minds. And we also have to remember that when we're talking about a transformation, we have to remember that it's a change in our thoughts and our mentalities. It's a change in our value system, changes in our beliefs. It's a change. It is, again, it's a shift. It's a pivot. It is something that we have to do when we're talking about how can we change our lives. It's about changing our ethos, because we can never have a transformation without a change, and we can never have a transformation without new revelation. So we need new information. And so I see that 2 more people just joined us. So let us know where you are in the box so I know who I'm speaking with. What I also want to talk about is that a change, transformation, is something that is not instantaneous. Hey there, Yvonne. So good to have you. It's a process, and transformation is something that's it's incremental. It's not instantaneous. It's incremental, because it's one thing to take you out of a problem, but it's a whole nother situation to take the problem out of you. Or it's one thing to take you out of the dysfunction, but it's another thing to take the dysfunction out of you. So we always have to think about, when we are talking about transformation, we have to think of a process. It's a metamorphosis has to happen, where we are changing our thoughts, changing our minds, changing how we are showing up in the world, so that we can be the person that we want to be. It's a transition that needs to happen. But if you have the handout that I put in the group, it looks like this. There are 5 things that need to happen when we are embarking on a transformation. 5 things that need to happen when we are trying to have a transformation in our lives. The first thing that needs to happen is exposure. Exposure. Because you can never be it if you don't see it. And oftentimes, it's until we see something new, until we see there are new options, until we see new evidence, it's hard for us to change our behavior, because we can't see it. We can't be it if we don't see it. That's why it's so important to try to find new opportunities to stretch your mind and to cultivate your mind, so that you have more information and more ammunition to make changes in your life. It's this old saying that if you only have a hammer, everything's going to look like a nail, right? So that's why we got to make sure everything doesn't look like a nail. And the way we do that is to expose ourselves to more information into different types of people. So when we make a transformation, we can see something and our spirit will can affirm that that feels good for us. So we need exposure because again, you have to see it to be it. Hey, Trina. The second thing we have to do is we have to have education. Why? Because when we're trying to change our lives, to transform our lives, we need to have greater information. Because you can never perform beyond your level of information. I will say it another way. You have to know it to grow it. And if you don't have the basic information to execute your life and to execute change, you can never do it. We have to have a sense of a database for us to make the changes that we need to make. So again, we need to have education. You can never perform beyond your level of information. So we got to do that. I don't care if it's information about you, information about addiction, information about relationship, anything that we need to improve. We have to improve our reservoir of information, because when you know better, you do better. But until you do better, you can't do better until you know better. So we need exposure, we need education. The third thing we need is examination. Why? Because for us to make critical changes in our lives, we have to be critical thinkers. Because if we don't become critical thinkers, you will approach life from a place of a slave versus a place of a student. I'm going to say that again. If you are not a critical thinker, you will live your life from a position of a slave and not from a position of a student. Live presentation is breaking up. Oh no, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening. Probably my internet is shaky. I apologize about that, Yvonne. But it's so important for us to do, when we get information, for us to not just accept and digest whatever we are told. It's so important that when we get information from someone, that we think about it. Because if not, all we are doing is following the expectations and the beliefs of someone else, and that will never help you in your road to transition, road to transformation. Again, learn information, expose your information, but it's so important to take that information, digest it, refresh it, critically analyze it, pray about it, and then make a decision. Trini said, please talk more about being a slave. Great. Anytime we get information and we believe it without our own analysis, that's when we're being a slave. When we get information and we do what people tell us to do, we are almost being a puppet. We're being a parrot. It's like somebody's pulling our strings to say, believe this. We're like, okay, believe that. Okay. But to make changes in your life, we can never believe everything we hear. We have to take the information, we have to investigate, we have to research it, and then find out what feels good for us and to us. So it's all about being a critical thinker. The challenge is now in our society, we don't teach people to be critical thinkers. We are taught in school to drink the Kool-Aid. And we don't care if it's bad Kool-Aid. We don't care if it's toxic Kool-Aid. We don't care if the Kool-Aid will kill us. But we're really not taught to be critical thinkers. And that critical thinker is what helps us to be a student of a thing versus being a slave of a thing. I don't care if it's even religion. Religion, we have to critically analyze religion. If not, we will become a slave of dogma or a slave of doctrine versus being a student of doctrine. And that's the difference. So great question. So we need to have exposure. We need to have education. We need to have examination. The fourth thing we need to do is we have to enlist people to help us. Nobody makes transformation alone. Change is difficult. So we always have to make sure we have people to support us on that healing journey. I like to call it is that you need a crew to make it through. You need a crew to make it through. Nobody does anything in isolation. So we always have to make sure that when we are trying to go through a transition in our life, we need support. We need mentorship. We need sponsorship. We need coaching. We need prayer. We need a sister circle. We need a brother circle. None of us does anything alone. And it's dangerous when you're making transformation to feel as if you can make transformation alone. Everybody needs accountability. Because if not, when it gets tough, we quit. It's kind of like exercise. If you're exercising by yourself, as soon as you get tired, you stop. Versus a trainer will push you. Or it's kind of like lifting weights. As soon as you get tired, you stop. But a trainer will push you. We all need to be pushed. We all need to be pressed because we all are pressing toward the mark. And we always need to have someone to help us because we are better in community. And that's really, really important for us to remember. And the last thing that we need to do when we're making transformation is that we have to execute. Now, execution is hard. But it's always important to remember we don't reap what we say, we reap what we sow. And the sowing means that we have to do some work, that we have to be involved, we have to be engaged. And so often people don't make the changes or the progress that they want because they are trying to reap what they say. Nobody cares about your words. Words don't make transformation. What makes transformation is implementation. And that's why that's why transformation is a process. Because when you think about it, all of us have upward hopes and downhill habits. So what we're trying to do with transformation is to address this downward habits. Because it's always the little things that we do in our lives that sabotage us from having big success. I'm going to say that again. It's the very little things that we do in our life that sabotages us from having big success. And when we identify what those small things are, that's when we will have great success because it's really always those things, those I call them needle movers. If we can move the needle in an incremental way in our lives, that's when we can have big success. So when we think about having success and having transformation, we think about, again, a change in mentality. We have to take the pathology, we have to move out of the pathology, but also remove the pathology out of ourselves. And we do that by, one, we have to have exposure because we can't be it if we can't see it. We need to see what good looks like so we can emulate it. Two, we have to have education. You can never perform beyond your information. So we got to get more information so we have a great reservoir to which to pull from so that we can be successful. We have to have examination to make sure that we approach life from a place of a student versus a slave, because everything we learn does not apply to us, and we need to be able to discern what's good for us and what will help us be better, be more powerful, and be bolder. And so we have to have that critical analysis process to make sure we know the difference. And then four, we have to enlist support. None of us becomes our best selves by ourselves. We need people to walk with us on this journey. We need people to serve as to reflect what we're doing well, to reflect where we need to improve. We can never improve without reflection. We need people to help us identify our blind spots, because what you don't know will kill you, and what you don't know will derail you. So we need someone to help us identify our blind spots and see the things that we can't see, or things that are difficult for us to see. And the last one is execution. We can never move forward in our life. You take the information to have transformation, and the transformation can only have what? Implementation. So we got to do the work. So those are the 5 things to make sure that we have transformation in our lives, and it's just not a transfer, because nobody wants transfers. Why would you want to take a mess from one situation and bring it to another situation? Take a mess from one relationship and take it to another relationship. The only way that we can make sure that we don't keep bringing dysfunction and pathology and problems and pain and sabotaging ourselves is through transformation. So I hope this helps. Thanks so much, Trina, for being with me, and Yvonne. I appreciate all of you being here today. I'll leave this information in our group, and thanks so much for being part of Dare to Soar Higher. I'm grateful of all the groups that you decide to be in, that you hear in the Dare to Soar Higher group. So thank you, everybody. Have Good evening. I hope this helps. Blessings to you always.